Hi, my name is Harper Howell. I will be your social worker today. I do work with Opportunities for Growth, and we're an organization that provides services for individuals with disabilities. You must be Tammy Vaughn.
Yes, I am.
Hi, how are
Nice
you
to meet
doing
you.
today?
I'm good. Thank you for asking. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for asking.
Yeah.
So, it is my understanding that we are here today to talk about your son, Eric.
Yes.
Okay, tell me a little bit about Eric.
Eric, he's 15 years old, so he's in eighth grade right now, about to start high school. And he, we're on here behalf of him because me and his dad, we're a little worried about his well-being and just is coming here for like support and like services open. But yeah, eighth grade, trouble making friends right now. So trying to get help with that too. And yeah, I guess that's just the basis of him. He has the main problems and concerns we're here for would be his behavior, very output and inappropriate, and then his behavior, and then just like finding ways to get him help with his diet and everything.
Okay, so I do just want to let you know, you may have seen me like writing down a few little things. I do have a notepad here with me. I will be taking a few notes if that's okay with you, of course.
Yes.
If you have any questions about what I'm writing down or you'd like to see, let me know and I will more than welcome share those with you. Um, so you are coming in here today because Eric seems to be having trouble with friends. He's having some issues with his behavior, and he's also having issues with the diet as well. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. Um, so kind of moving along here, I'm going to ask a few questions about his medical history.
Okay.
So does he have any like illnesses that you're aware of? Any hospitalizations for illnesses?
She's been diagnosed, the ones that we have seen, have been autism, cerebral palsy, medically intractable epilepsy, and GLUT1 transport deficiency syndrome. And for the surgeries, he's had several of them and hospitalizations. He's had two eye surgeries to fix it's like crossed eyes that he has. So he had surgeries to help fix that, and he wears glasses now. Um, he's had two separate hospitalizations in the past 3 months, and those were to address his abnormal seizure behavior. He also goes in every 6 months to test his CBC, medical panel, and cognitive levels. And to help, he's taking an alpha lipoic acid supplement, and that assists in the glucose transport. And he's also taking antidepressants.
Okay, just writing some of those things down here.
Yeah, it's a
So, how do you feel like that these illnesses and diagnoses and hospital stays has affected Eric, like mentally and emotionally?
he the diagnosis they definitely make his social and emotional functioning very difficult. And I would say he's not very aware of the issues that he goes with every day to day, but he realizes that he's different from his peers. And so that can like get to him a lot. And we've been told, and we think that like that has to do with his outbursts of behavior. So we're like, we think that's all linked together because he notices the difference. And he really wants to put himself out there. Like you can tell he loves school, he loves talking to his friends, but it's very, very difficult for
I'm so sorry to hear that. That must be really hard to deal with and to have to watch as his parent as well.
him. Yeah, it is. It takes a toll on both me and my husband, but I feel that in a way we have to stay strong for him. And then, like, we know he needs to be aware of what he goes through, but it's just hard with a kid. You like want to hide him from all that and make sure he's okay.
That is completely understandable and a very gracious thing as parents to do this for your child. So continuing on with some of the medical health history, can you give me some names of like past or current healthcare providers that he sees?
Yes, he has an individual support team, and he has a for the names of the people I have are his behavioral support specialist, Bree Heron, a case manager, Marla Hoover, and the director of supported living services. His name's Travis Calmer, and his team manager, Mara Ladig. And then he also sees a family physician, a neurologist, an eye specialist, a metabolic mitochondrial specialist, and a rare brain disorders specialist. So those are the ones that we have him seeing. And they work a lot with his behavioral and his diet and all that stuff.
Wow, it seems that you guys have a really big support team that you guys have built for Eric. That's wonderful.
Yes, it's a good thing to have all those people. Not sure if Eric's too much of a fan of it because one problem that we do, he does have problems listening to people, and we notice that it's a little bit harder when it comes to people of authority. He doesn't really seem to like them. But then I also know that all these support people do help in the long run to help think of the best help for him.
Completely understandable. Those boys becoming teenagers, huh?
Yeah.
So, diving more into the family medical history, could you give me any background in either you or your husband's side of like if any of you guys have had like excuse me, psychiatric help or like mental health disorders or any substance abuse that you know of?
There's actually no medical history in our family that we've noticed that directly affects Eric. And there's no history of psychiatric treatment and history within his family. He does have psychiatric treatment, but it's only behavior management. There's nothing else. But yeah, no history of psychiatric or medical in our family. So,
Good, good.
and no drug use either, chemical dependency, none of that.
Well, that's good to hear. So do you guys have any like health concerns or safety issues whenever it comes to Eric?
Like in Eric himself or like the people around him.
I would
Or
say within Eric himself, like, do you think that his health issues are like the way that they're going right now are dangerous to him, or do you feel like that he may be a danger to himself or others?
um, I would say it's not a major thing, but if he is at harm for himself or others, it'd be when his like behavioral outbursts come. Because we have noticed that he will tend to damage physical things, and he has not hit anyone, but you can tell he gets very angrily, and will hit things. And so we're kind of worried and watching that to see if it becomes hitting other people. And with his diagnosis and everything, what it does to his well-being is with his diet, we've tried so many things, and if he has too much of like high sugars and like bad carbohydrates and everything, it will kick in his cerebral palsy and he will lose functioning in one or both of his legs. So that's where it can become a damage to him. And then kind of like the mental aspects of him. He struggles with a lot. And yeah, kind of just all goes hand in hand with each other.
Yeah, dealing with behavior outbursts and physical violence, I can only imagine how difficult and sometimes scary that must be for you to deal with. Are there any methods that usually calm Eric down better than others that you've noticed?
Um, we try to get him, he's interested in volunteer opportunities as he's too young to be employed, but he's interested in those and we get funds to we receive funds to let him into different services. And as I said before, he is very interested in school and making friends. And so we try to get him to go do some sort of like physical opportunity, stuff that his school like holds and everything. Just trying to get him there once in a while. And someone from his support team, they do provide transportation, as me and my husband do work a lot. So they provide transportation for those things. So we try to get him out, and it seems to calm him down. And then we've tried changing his diet a little bit, see what works and what doesn't, based on what his specialist has said. And yeah.
So you've noticed that maybe whenever he's a little bit more active and eating a little bit healthier, that his behavior is less violent and more happy.
Yes. And the thing too, we try to limit the amount of time he goes out and stays. Like we always want him to go out there and be active, but it will get to a certain point where he can become, in a sense, overwhelmed with everything going on. And then if he makes like, because he tried Boy Scouts before, and the other boys and girls from like class seem to like baby him in a way. So like since we can't really predict how other people are gonna treat him, they treat him differently. Then like he realizes that, and then that's when like things turn over, and that's when the behavior kicks in and all that. So we do try to get him out there. We're just a little worried when it comes to other people.
That is very understandable. Other
Mhm.
people are very unpredictable on what they might do.
Yeah, and it's not their fault. Like I'm not blaming them at all. It just I don't want anything to happen to him or others.
Understandable. So now I'm going to move on and ask you questions about like developmental things, how things were with your pregnancy, that kind of thing. Uh,
Mhm.
so did you have any difficulties or abnormalities with your pregnancy and or delivery?
There was no any major concerns, but up until the last 5 weeks of my pregnancy, I was bedridden and I gave birth 4 weeks prior to my due date. So nothing major except for being the bedridden at the end and then the late due date. And he was my first pregnancy. And then so yeah, that's really all of my pregnancy. And then I had two sons after that too, and no problems with them.
Okay. Do you know what age Eric started walking?
Not until he was 2.5 years old.
Okay, and what about talking?
I would say about 4 years old.
Okay. And then early developmental issues or disabilities that you have may noticed before he was diagnosed with autism and cerebral palsy.
Um, we remember, like I know, like if it's a late start to the walking and the talking, that is something that you need to be aware of and want to go look out. And then when I had my two other sons, Eric adjusted fine to them in the beginning. Everything was fine, but now as they get older, I would say in a way, my other sons are not. I'd say they're the ones that are not adjusting normally to having an older brother with all these problems. And I believe that many of Eric's current behaviors stem from the conflicts with him and his brothers, especially like in the house and everything. Just like the way that they treat him. And yeah, they don't treat him very well.
So whenever you say they don't treat him very well, do you care to elaborate and maybe tell me some of the behaviors or words that they do and say to Eric?
Um, so they're not like okay. I don't know what word to put there, but they know it's not normal how um having an older brother who is less mature than them, and that causes many conflicts, and it brings out all of Eric's negative behaviors where he will turn to physical aggression, and then that's when he will show like destruction and poverty and let out his frustration that way. So yeah, the relationship is just very unhealthy, and I try to get my sons to understand that he does like he's less mature than they are, and he is their older brother, so they just don't think it's normal, but they just don't understand that they need to treat Eric the same respect as they do anyone else. And I try to get it through their heads, but they don't treat him any better.
So how old are your two younger sons?
Um, I have one 9-year old and one 6-year old, so they're both younger. And I hope it gets better with age, but I would at least expect my 9-year old to be a little more understanding.
Mhm. So, jumping kind of back to what we were just talking to before, I wanted to ask you, what age was Eric diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder and cerebral palsy?
He was about, well, when he was 7 years old and entering kindergarten, that's when he was enrolled in special education courses. So I'm not too sure exactly what age he was diagnosed with, but I think I want to say around 4 years old, somewhere around there, because we were told to put him in special education courses that young.
So with adjustment to family members, you said that Eric's relationship with you, and your husband are mainly positive, but mainly negative with his two younger siblings, correct?
Yes. Like I said, he used to get along with them really well, but it's just become unhealthy, and then it's just a never-ending cycle of the poor relationship and then just causing so many conflicts in the house. But yeah, Eric, he lives with me, my husband, and then our two brothers. But his grandparents live very close, so they see him very often. And but yeah, he's a good relationship with me and my husband. Haven't any problems there. He's very clingy to us. So yeah.
So when would you say that the issues with between Eric and his two younger brothers really started to become apparent to you?
It was pretty recent because I mean, with 9 and 6-year old, you don't really have much of an attitude that young or much of an understanding. So it was pretty recent. Eric was doing completely okay. And then I think it was when the boys started school and being around other people. And I don't know if maybe kids are making fun of them for having a brother. And then they just reflect it back. But it was pretty recent, the last year or two, when I
Okay.
started noticing all this.
So you'd say within the last 12 to 24 months, this has become more apparent to you.
Yes.
Okay. Next, I am going to ask you about Eric's personality in the early years. Would you say
Mhm.
that he was like playful? Would you say he was more withdrawn? Did he like cry unusually, like a lot for a baby, based on your first time mom experience? Uh,
Yeah. Um, he is a very strong-willed personality, very exciting person. I'd say as a child, I describe it as playful and energetic, but he was limited in ability due to his GLUT1 deficiency syndrome and the seizures at that time. But that's when we started the diet regarding his food intake. But he's always struggled to make close friends since with his inability to keep up mentally with his peers. So that put him at a disadvantage when it comes to relating to those close around him. And now his behavior is constantly changing. So going from the playful and energetic little boy that he was, he would all of a sudden switch to and just some days he's more compliant than others. The behavior really kicks out. And then he's always struggled with paying attention, listening to the tasks that are given to him. So yeah, definitely everyday changing personality. It's never constant anymore. But I would say he's still that playful and energetic little boy and that strong driven personality he shows a lot now.
So, from my understanding, he was very like playful and energetic as a child, obviously with some constraints due to his disabilities.
Mhm.
Still seems to be that way, but he definitely does switch around on his mood, going into some like destructive kind of emotions. Um, so sorry, lost my train of thought there.
You're
Oh,
okay.
yeah, I was going to ask you if you notice that the behavior is like once he wakes up, he's in that mood all day, or if it kind of switches sporadically throughout the day.
Definitely switches sporadically from sometimes it's his diet, sometimes lack of sleep. So yes, when he wakes up, he can be cranky. And then so it can be from the diet, it can be from tiredness, and then sometimes going out to school with other people. So it definitely changes throughout the day. But some days it is constant. He'll be happy all day. He's rarely ever bad behavior all day. So I would say he's more good behavior and getting along with people and wanting to be in school. He has that not very often, but he has it more days than he has bad days. So that has changed a lot, has gotten a lot better. I would say around 5 months ago, he started showing very good behavior.
So what I'm hearing is that usually his behavior is pretty good unless there's an outside factor that affects it, whether it be diet, poor sleep, school, being overwhelmed, the brothers messing with him, things like that.
Yeah, definitely all those have to take in the factor and think about which one it is.
So you mentioned that Eric has never really had success with making friendships and relationships with his peers. You
hmm
said that he strives for a relationship with his peers.
hmm
What are some things that you think might inhibit Eric's ability to create a relationship with his peers?
Like a barrier for it or things that would help it.
Yeah, like a barrier.
Okay. I would say he is very well with picking up on people's behaviors, whether they're negative or positive. So if they have like a negative outlook on them, then that'll make them very frustrated and angry. And also, he shared this with one of his specialists. He did not tell me personally, he told them. He said he doesn't feel that there's anyone else that shares similar interests or anyone else who is like him. So I think that that will kind of disencourage him to make friends because he knows he feels like no one else out there is like him and he's not gonna fit in.
So definitely lots of behavioral pattern recognition going on, and then feeling very isolated because he is different from everyone else, is what I'm hearing.
hmm And that stems into his depression too.
So you mentioned earlier that Eric started kindergarten at the age of 7, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then you said that you guys started him out in special education classes.
hmm
Okay.
And he's still in those now in eighth grade.
All right. So when it comes to adjusting to school, do you feel like that his behavior causes issues, or are there any like disciplinary issues with teachers, other staff members, students, things like that?
Yeah, like I said before, he is really interested in going to school and he has a drive to continue to learn different skills and a desire for a social life. And school does help him get out there, but as I said before, disciplining him is a very hard thing to do as he doesn't listen to authority very well. And we try to, obviously, his teachers let us know like the problems that's going on, but like his levels of comprehension are below average and his behaviors are still dependent on a bunch of things. So it is a lot to put on these teachers, but we feel that him being out of school would not help anything as he still desired to go and everything, make all those friends. And so, yeah, school, it is a struggle for him as he can't, it's hard for him to focus on the task, hard for him to listen, and he just wants to have control over a lot of things, over like the things around him and his environment. And we figured out a good technique is that if he begins to get upset, then he should seek out alone time to cool down. And that does seem to help. A lot of teachers had said that it does too, and we've noticed it at the home. But yeah, that came from our behavior supports plan that helped with that.
So he likes school and the learning aspect, getting to be social with some of his peers, different
hmm
activities like that. But as you mentioned earlier, whenever it comes to discipline from authority figures, he doesn't take that
Yeah.
very well. And then you mentioned also how he has different behavioral specialists. Do they work with him mainly like inside of the school, inside your home, or like outside of either of those places?
Um, they do all of the above. I mean, obviously we have a bunch of different people on our team. We have people who meet with just me and my husband, people who meet with us as a family. We do have some people who go see him in school, like specific people for that. And then, yeah, so he's mostly around them a lot of the time. And at home, we do have a babysitter who helps a lot because me and my husband do work. So our babysitter helps with that. But he has a lot of plans, a lot of people, a lot of support. So they see him every part of the day.
So, when it comes to like adjusting, well, we just talked about adjusting to school, but with that, like the unusual changes recently, have you noticed any unusual changes in like his grades, at school recently?
Um, I would say not anything big, but not a huge thing, but you can definitely tell some days it does get really bad because he just has these outbursts when he doesn't get what he wants. He has a lot of things. He says that he does it when he can't get what he wants, when someone else initiates conversation, when he is touched is something new that we have brought into our eyes, and then when he thinks about being different from his peers. And then the frustration and anger, he kicks doors or walls all the time. But then also with things getting worse, we have also found the alone time that I mentioned before. and then kind of if and then statements. We've noticed that those can help reduce agitation, kind of like if this happens, then what? Kind of like giving him time to think about it. And so just acting from the frustration, anger, try to get him to talk about things that are happening instead of just blurting out, kicking down the walls and doors.
Some physically violent behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I really like the methods that you use to get him to calm down, such as just taking some alone time to breathe and figure it out, and then also using natural consequences as well to figure out what happens if a certain action is taken. Those can be very helpful to children. So overall, would you say that Eric's current school functioning is like normal, where he's, like learning and different things like that every day? Would you say it's subpar, where you feel like that his behaviors and disciplinary issues are making school like more difficult for him on a day-to-day basis, or what would your judgment be?
I would personally say that he definitely still has the desire to be social and he loves sports and a bunch of other various activities I could think of. He really wants to continue learning different skills, desire to have a social life. And we think that those decrease the negative behavior. So as soon as he gets to do things that he likes, then he's okay. Then that can also be seen as a problem. Because obviously not every day he gets to go to school. I mean, there are the weekends, not every day he can go do sports. So we try to keep him as busy as possible. And it's always hard to getting my husband gone because no one can really take him out because we don't want to put that much pressure on our babysitter. So it's kind of just hard because he doesn't really get the chance to do all those different things, but we know that's what makes him happy. They try to, it's just really hard to get him to do that.
Yeah, I can understand how that can be frustrating to have to work with and work around sometimes, whenever you're dealing with a child who is very much give me what I want when I want it now,
Hmm.
especially if he doesn't understand why exactly he can't have what he want right now.
Yeah.
So, moving on to the educational background, you said that he's currently in the eighth grade, correct?
Yes.
And to your knowledge, he's never had to like repeat, skip a grade, anything like that.
No.
Okay. Whenever it comes to significant family history, would you say the most significant is probably the issues with the brothers?
Yeah, and we also just got a new puppy, and she's not trained the best, and so that results in like accidents at the home, and the puppy is just constantly misbehaving. And we've noticed that that also feeds into Eric's negative behaviors, especially physical aggression. So, but the boys really wanted a puppy. They all wanted one. Eric really said he wanted one too, but now it's just all the accidents and that stuff.
A full house.
Yeah, a
Um,
lot of hands full.
so you mentioned how your parents live relatively close by and are involved in your all's life.
Mhm.
What would you say that their relationship with Eric is?
Um, the grandparents are on my side of the family. I've always been really close to them, and we're all a part of a church community, so we all go to that. Eric doesn't really show the biggest interest in it, but he still goes with us. My grandparents go with us, or my mom and dad go with us. And I'd say it's a pretty good relationship. They try to stay involved in Eric's life. They adore him. I would say they don't show the brothers any more favoritism or anything than they do Eric. So I think they really do a good job of keeping it balanced. They always help us as much as they can, so I'm very appreciative of that to have someone that close to me. And yeah, so. it's a pretty good relationship with them. They help a lot.
So, when Eric is interacting with different members of the family, are there any reoccurring like patterns of interaction that you may notice?
Um, I would say if he feels like he can keep a good conversation and he stays focused on the conversations, like with me and my husband, we'll sit there and we'll talk with them. We'll have him do things, we'll do stuff with them. That's when he focuses on what we're doing. His behaviors are calm. But then as soon as he goes to his brothers don't want anything to do with him. They don't talk to him. And so that makes him really frustrated. So I would say a lot of attention versus like no attention definitely has to do with the behaviors and not the behaviors. So his brothers, that's probably why they're not the best help because they don't really give him the attention that he wants. So I would say that's the relationship between um, his behaviors and his family.
So, we're going to kind of switch gears here and we're going to talk about more of like the family unit.
Mhm.
So, are you and or your husband currently employed?
Yes, we both work a lot. So yeah, we do have a babysitter that stays with our kids. And yeah,
Are either of you either current military or ex-military?
no.
And then what are your living arrangements currently?
Um, we live in a nice home in the suburbs in Carmel, Indiana. And it's not the best kept home. I try to clean as much as I can, but especially with the puppy, with us working, it's unkept a majority of the time. There's a little embarrassing, but there's dirty clothes and dishes that are always there. All my boy live with a home full of boys. The toilets are rarely flushed. I rarely have time to clean them because they just get dirty the next second. But there's no rodents or insects in the house. And it's not the worst it could possibly be, but it's not extremely well cared for.
And in the last 12 to 24 months, have your guys' living arrangements changed?
No.
Okay. So, um, looking into some different factors here, have there been any noticeable changes in Eric's behavior in the last 12 months?
Um, about 5 months ago, pretty sure I mentioned this before, but about 5 months ago, he had very good behavior and physical strength. And it came after a long time of poor behavior and loss of strength. But that was in about October last year. And so we decided to take him off the diet that he was partaking in. But then that resulted in dramatic behavior and physical changes because of the intake of unhealthy foods, processed foods, and the foods with no nutritional value. That decreased his ability to concentrate and focus on tasks and his inability to endure physical activity. So
Mhm.
it's doing really well. So we thought we could make a change, but it just made things worse now.
So, would you say that Eric's disabilities and disorders have played like a cognitive or perceptual like dysfunction like within his brain and the way that you feel like that he functions?
His what? I'm sorry.
Basically, do you feel like that his disabilities or diagnoses create like cognitive dysfunction in
Okay.
his brain compared to
Um,
a normal person?
yes, they definitely do. Um, they the issues with the physical aggression, agitation, and then the dependency, they've created a lot of barriers in him achieving his lifelong goals. And he just gets angry with those things. He has a lot to do, especially with his diet. It's a lot of work for him and us. and it's not easily maintained at all. And that I think comes with him. Like, if he doesn't keep up with his diet, then that causes one of his legs to like stop working, and then it'll cause his behavior. So I think when he realizes that he has to keep up with the diet and not everyone else does, I think that stems into more of the physical aggression stuff. So I think him realizing about all these things that he has to do and all the things that are wrong with him.
Mhm. Um, has there been any significant loss, or maybe one of you guys got like a new job, or overall just a big change within Eric's life within the last 12 months?
I would say we have no deaths or anything. I would say that the biggest thing is again me and my husband not being in the home as that we are like a limited presence throughout the week, and we think it makes it very difficult for him to do more than what is provided for him. And we try to bring him a lot to various activities like the church, but other than that, he remains at home and he takes bus to and from school or transportation from the support professionals twice a week to various activities. So I would say maybe just us not being home that causes a lot of him to again not go out and do as much as we hope for.
So, moving forward, are there any like cultural factors that I should be aware of or need to address when working with Eric?
He hasn't shown a large interest or passion in religion, so but as I said, me and his family we do go to church, but yeah, he has not shown any passion in religion, so not for him, no.
Okay. And then, do you or anyone else in the home have any current or past criminal charges, arrest, or legal mandates, warrants?
No.
Okay. And then, to your knowledge, are there any indications of child abuse, child neglect, spousal abuse, in the home at all?
No.
Okay. And then, are there any current or past traumas that Eric might be currently dealing with, to your knowledge?
No, I would say, I mean, obviously, as long as he's been going through this thing, that can cause a lot inside of him, but nothing major from an outside source.
Okay. And then, what are some skills and strengths that you feel like that Eric portrays?
Um, I would say that he does have a very strong-willed personality, like I said before, and then that he has a lot of interest in the things and a desire to be similar to others and find the mutual interest. And that really shows a drive within him, the drive to learn different things, have a social life. And yeah, I think once he learns and process the normal socialization skills and actions, he could have better grasp on all the things. So I would say his personality, his interest, his drives and desire are a very big skill and strength inside of him.
Mhm. Those are some awesome skills and strengths for him to have.
I think so too.
So I'm just going to go ahead and kind of recap the basic overview of what we've kind of talked about today as we're kind of wrapping up towards the end here.
Mm-hmm.
So, your 15-year-old son, Eric, he's currently in the 8th grade. He has been diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, cerebral palsy, epilepsy. He has a glucose deficiency, several hospitalizations, medications, different things like that. He has a great team of support with all of his medical staff, behavioral staff, his family, and um, parental support. There are no outgoing histories, like family-wise, of psychiatric, mental health, substance abuse, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he is affected socially and emotionally by his illnesses and disabilities, by having trouble making friends, and socializing, some violent behavior whenever he feels frustrated. And then some things that kind of combat those are volunteering experiences, getting to socialize with peers, doing things in school that he likes to do. He has a defiancy towards authority sometimes and doesn't really like to listen to authority.
Mm-hmm.
Some different developmental concerns whenever he was younger to later then be diagnosed with autism and cerebral palsy, as well as epilepsy and all those things that I had mentioned before.
Yeah.
He's currently in the eighth grade, has a great relationship with mom and dad, grandma, grandpa, not so great relationship with little brothers. And then overall family life is good. You have a babysitter, you guys work, recently got a new dog, and he's had some serious behavioral changes in the last 5 months or so, with overall being really happy, physical, things like that, to now being more depressed, angry, and not as physically active. And then there's no known problems with the law, abuse, trauma, things like that. And then Eric has some awesome strengths going for him, being strong-willed, a lot of interest in pursuing different things, a desire to fit in with his others, and then he has a passionate drive. So, do you have any questions, comments, or concerns with me before we go ahead and wrap up for today?
I think you got it all down. I would, there's not much else I would really add. I would just want to say one more time that we're hoping that some of the services that you provide for us, we want to make sure that they're goal oriented and easy to keep up with him and like me and his family. So yeah, just kind of want to put a lot of emphasis on those as that's what we're hoping to get out of this.
Yeah, of course. And we will also talk about all of that at our next meeting to talk about our intervention and treatment plan, where I would actually love to get to meet Eric as well. But thank you so much for your time today. I will be reaching out shortly with opportunities for growth where we can go ahead and get that next meeting scheduled.
Okay,
It was
sounds good.
lovely talking to you, Miss Vaughn.
Nice to talk to you too.